Hello everyone, this is Guide with another Ingest and Contextualize screencast. It's been, I don't know, a month and a half since the last time and everything's changed, so it's time to do another one. So it's cool to see so much innovation happening at such a rapid pace. So what I have here is essentially an empty tenant. So I have no time series, no assets, no files. And we're going to fill this tenant with some assets from the Valhall oil field, along with some time series from the same oil field. I'm going to show how to connect that data together, that is, contextualize it, and then I'm going to contextualize a file as well to show that. So we're starting with the Cognite console, and the console is basically the front end for CDF, so it's a user interface for Cognite Data Fusion. I start here in the raw explorer. So I'm going to add some raw data here coming from the platform. So I already ingested this asset data here into raw. So this is in the source format. And I'm going to do the same thing with time series data. This is the metadata for the time series. So I have that as raw tables here. You can add more tables just by uploading CSVs, but in general you would use extractors that run and they periodically or continuously upload more data into raw. The next step is to transform the data into the Cognite Data Fusion data model. Now, there's a new feature here that I want to use, which is data sets. And data sets, they provide a way for you to govern the data and view lineage. So I'm going to create a new data set for these assets. Let's call it Valhall assets. Assets from the Valhall PH platform. So the Valhall oil field actually has several platforms, but this is one of them. And you can even set this as write protected. I'm not going to do it now, but that is something that you can do to ensure that nobody else is messing with this data. So here I'm going to set a source, and the source system for this data set is workmate, and I'm going to be using this service account for writing the data, and I can select what table, what database and table this data is coming from. Now, the second thing is I can tell it what transformation is being used here. So before I do that, I want to actually create that transformation. So create a new transformation here. Now, and I'll name this all assets. This is of the asset hierarchy type. So this is a new kind of transformation, and it creates an asset hierarchy for you. So I'm going to cheat a bit and copy paste the SQL statement here. So here you write SQL to transform the data. It's pretty easy stuff. It's essentially just renaming some fields, and it's setting a dataset ID, which is the wrong dataset ID. So I'm gonna have to replace this. But I'm gonna go ahead and preview this query. And this UI is telling me if I need to change anything, but this looks good. It's not listing any of these columns as red or yellow. So it looks fine, but the dataset ID. So let's go back to datasets. And here I'm going to select this transformation. and I will be the owner. This is my email. If you want to get in touch, you can do that. I can also upload additional documentation here. And I can set whether this data is governed or not. I'm going to select that this is governed. So that's an indication of the data quality here. So now I created my data set, but it's empty. I'm going to copy this data set ID, which I will put into this transformation. Hit preview again. And now we can move on to transform. Now, since this job is running on my behalf, it's going to need some credentials. So I'll go ahead and create an API key for this service account. Now, you may think that you've been that you got lucky now and you can hack my tenant, but I'll delete that, revoke that key before I publish this video. So you're out of luck, unfortunately. Anyway, this the data in this tenant is that interesting. It's part of the Open Industrial Data set, which you can sign up. Anyone can sign up for it at openindustrialdata.com, and yeah, so you can play with this data if you want to. So now we've run this this asset hierarchy pipeline. So if you go to Explorer and we load this, we should have an asset hierarchy. So go here, we can browse this hierarchy, we can go down, kind of look at the various levels here, navigate down, etc., etc. So we have an asset hierarchy, which forms the skeleton of the data model in Cognite Data Fusion. So that's good. Now let's onboard some time series data as well. So we're going to create another transform, which will be Valhalla time series, and it will be of the type time series. And again, I will cheat a little bit, copy paste this SQL in the interest of time. Now again, I want another dataset ID here. So this is again renaming some field, casting some data types, nothing fancy. So let's go and create a data set. So again, it's going to be Valhalla time series. Yep, time series from Valhalla PH platform. Great. And the source here is pi, this table. And I will use this service account. And the transform that we'll use is this one that I just created. And again, I'm the owner. And again, I'll select the governed data quality indicator. And there we have our data set. It's empty, but I'll copy this data set ID so I can put this data into it. So this looks fine. Do the transformation. here again, I'll create an API key for my service account. There we go. And transform. This is a Spark job. It's running on multiple workers. So it sometimes takes a bit of time to spin up, but then once it's started, it's usually quite fast. So here we are, we finished. And now we should have time series as well. Yeah. And if we go in on this, into this time series, you can view, of course, the metadata for that. But as you see, it doesn't have any link to an asset. So it would be nice to have this time series part of the asset hierarchy. And we could do that manually. So I can go in here and I can search for, this code in the asset hierarchy. ESDV. So it's probably this one. But that is very tedious and time consuming. So we're going to do this linking or contextualization in Data Studio, which is the right place to do that. So we're going to select this type of contextualization pipeline, which is asset matching. So we'll select this data set that we just created, the time series data set, and this asset data set. And now it's generating a model to predict which time series map to which assets. So here you can see the result of that model. So for every single time series, there's a suggested mapping to an asset. And it's even generalized this into a smaller set of rules that is essentially like a simplified form of a regular expression. So you can see time series that have a name that conforms to this form, this pattern, where you have some letters, an underscore, some digits, dash, some digits, dash, some digits, and then semicolon, letters, dot letters maps to assets like this. So this section here maps to this section here, L2 to L2, D3 to D3. Then you can go in and you can view the actual links that it's creating, and you can say, okay, apply this. And so an expert can be very, very effective with this tool. You can kind of go see what each rule is doing, and I say, okay, I'm fine with that. So we're just going to go ahead and apply these rules. And typically, even if you have a quite large platform with 30,000 time series and 100,000 assets, you end up with on the order of 100 different rules. The reason why there are so many rules is because humans made these names and they were not always consistent. So we're using technology to overcome that. So now they're in the staging area, these mappings, but we can write them to Cognite Data Fusion, which we'll do. Yeah, now we can see that the number of unmapped time series went down, and all of these stage changes were applied. So if we go back to this Explorer app and we load this again, oops, maybe I probably needs to reload this list. That's why. Yeah, so now you see these time series have been linked back to an asset. Now, finally, I want to show how you can contextualize files. So I'm going to upload a file here, and I'm going to use a file which is part of this open industrial data set. In this case, it's a piping and instrumentation diagram. So this sort of diagram tells you how equipment is connected. So it says, there's a pipe connecting this piece of equipment to this other piece of equipment, where the valves are, where the sensors are, etc. But this is just an image, and as you can see, it's not linked to any assets. So if we hit this button here, it says convert to interactive P&ID, then we got to give it a hint. So we got to tell it what root asset to search for assets under. So it will then apply image recognition to discover the different symbols here. It will apply optical character recognition to read the text, and then use some clever algorithms to stitch together the various blocks of text and search for assets that text corresponds to. So each symbol here is then mapped to an asset. And you can see here these yellow areas are now clickable. So you can click this and you can go to that connected asset and get the time series for that, etc., etc. And now you can also see that oops, if you go to this piping and instrumentation diagram itself, it's been processed and it's now an SVG file, so it's clickable. You see it's linked to all of these assets. So of course, if you were to do this at scale, again, you would go to Data Studio and you would use this contextualized P&IDs pipeline, and then you could do it on thousands of documents at the time. So that concludes this this short screen recording. Again, now you also have this tracing of the data and listing in a data catalog with data sets. So I hope that's useful. Thank you.